Xylitol is very disturbing to the microbiome. So it's disturbing to the oral and the gut microbiome.
Welcome to Wellness, your ultimate guide to unlocking your full human potential through biohacking. I'm your host, ASHLEYDEELEY. I'm a certified sports nutrition coach, former personal trainer, and Pilates instructor, and I have a degree in kinesiology. My goal is to help you improve and elevate the quality of your life. When you leave a review, it makes a positive difference. Whether you're listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube, or listening on any other streaming app, it helps listeners just like you find this hidden health information faster. If you're using Bluetooth headphones, it's seriously time to upgrade your health. Bluetooth headphones are constantly emitting EMFs, and the International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified them as a Group 2B carcinogen, which means they can cause headaches, fatigue, ringing in the ears, tinnitus, and even fertility issues. Thankfully, there's a lot of ways to reduce your exposure. The first one is to stop using Bluetooth headphones and start taking more calls on speakerphone or using wired devices. It's not just a simple upgrade as using wired headphones, but rather anti-radiation headphones that literally stop the radiation from traveling from your device directly into your head. The headphones I use are unlike any regular headphones because they use a hollow air tube between the speaker and the earbud. And this design creates a safe distance between your device and your headphone, therefore reducing EMF exposure. These headphones also work with any adapter, and they have a handy little microphone as well as a pause and play button for you to take calls and listen to music or podcasts. To find out which headphones I'm talking about, visit ashleydeely.com/headphones. That's ashleydeely.com/headphones, so you can stop using Bluetooth and upgrade your listening activities. Today's guest is Dr. Gerry Curatola, widely regarded as the father of biological dentistry. With over 40 years of clinical experience, he's transformed the way we think about oral health, from showing us how the mouth is directly connected to the health of the entire body, to being the founder of Rejuvenation Dentistry and author of the best-selling book, The Mouth-Body Connection. He's a pioneer in biologic restorative cosmetic dentistry. Dr. Curatola has trained thousands of dentists worldwide, founded the Curatola Wing for clinical research at NYU, and has been at the forefront of innovations like biocompatible materials and microbiome-friendly oral care. He's also the inventor of Revitin, the world's first prebiotic oral care formulation designed to support the ecology of the mouth. Beyond dentistry, his passion is holistic healing, integrating emotional, physical, and even spiritual well-being into the practice of care. Dr. Gerry, welcome to Wellness.
Thank you for having me, Ashley.
You are such a wealth of information, and I know you have incredible stories, but where I wanted to start today was, why are you commonly called the father of biological dentistry?
I think it's the gray hair. Actually, that started, I would say the father of modern biologic dentistry is probably more accurate, but I was lecturing somewhere, and because I went down this rabbit hole of a biologic approach 42 years ago. So it's really more than 4 decades. And I don't think there's anyone older than me practicing who's been doing this. But, it's important to realize biologic dentistry, there's a lot of dentists that are using that term. Almost, I would say, probably close to 80% don't really understand what that's all about. And I'd love to share more because for me, when I left dental school and I went to New York University's College of Dentistry, and great place to get clinical competence, to really learn to be what I call a good mechanic of teeth, mechanic of the mouth. And for me, and I was torn because my older brother went to medical school, and I was like medical school, dental school, but I became very skilled at cosmetic dentistry because I loved the aesthetics. I was an art minor when I was in college. I was a neuroscience major and an art minor. So for me, dentistry was just a perfect blend of science and art. And it really brought together so many interesting dimensions. And I think, I'm left-handed and right-handed. I'm left-handed for fine dexterity and right-handed for gross motor skills. So it was like bringing the left side and the right side of the brain together too, science and art. And I have a younger daughter now. My youngest daughter, Grace. She got her BFA at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts in Photography and Imaging. And I always knew like she was very much like me. Like she loved like biology and like she loved blood. And she'd be like studying it, as my oldest daughter would be passing out if she saw blood. Yeah. But Grace loved it. And she said to me, Dad, during COVID, she said, I think I'm going to go back for a postdoc and study, to go into healthcare. And I was like, well, is it medicine or dentistry? And she was like, I don't know, and she came to me she did a 1.5-year postdoc program. And then she said, Dad, I think I want to go into dentistry and I want to be a part of the change that you're bringing.
Aww.
And it was really, really, really touching. So, because they're still teaching about fluoride is good for you. And meanwhile, there's 71 studies linking drinking fluoridated water and cognitive impairment and lower IQ in children and all kinds of bone issues and thyroid issues, pineal gland. I mean, I could go on and on and on. But drinking fluoridated water does nothing to stop decay. You don't get decay from a lack of fluoride. You get decay from an imbalance in the oral microbiome, which was a very big part of my research for the past 30 years. So for me, biologic dentistry came, it's interesting if you want to hear the path. I came out of dental school and I went into a master's program. That was the first master's program in the United States on holistic health, which that was 1983. And 1983, that was looked at like voodoo by the conventional medical society. Holistic health, that's woo-woo. We don't do woo-woo. And actually, it was very interesting because it was a chiropractor by the name of Dr. Alan Pressman and a nutritionist, PhD nutritionist by the name of Gary Null, who was famous. He had a radio show and he was in nutrition. So this program kind of took both of their backgrounds, and Dr. Pressman is probably the first what you would call functional medicine doctor before functional medicine was really a thing. But we studied homeopathic medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, naturopathic medicine, Chinese medicine, acupuncture. I mean, all these different systems of herbal medicine. And it kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, everything that I was doing was, I like to say conventional dentistry was like drill them, fill them, and bill them. I tried to thrill them, but it was drill them, fill them, and bill. And dentists, are very, mechanically, oh, you got 3 cavities and you need this and you need 2 root canals and you got that, and you got a shopping list of work that you need in your mouth. But nobody was asking the question of, how did all this happen? Why did it happen? Why do you need 3? Why does your child have 8 cavities? What's going on? Oh, they like sweets. Well, why do they like sweets? Oh, they may have a candida infection. They may be addicted to sugar. They may have, there's all kinds of root causes of the problems. And I didn't see anyone looking at the root causes, everything. And then in oral care, we had this antiseptic approach to everything, right? Like Listerine, kill germs on contact. And Colgate Total came out in 1998, and it was supposed to come out as the antibiotic toothpaste. Then they said, kills plaque 24 hours a day. So everything was kill, 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 kill. And my research, which began in 2002 on the oral microbiome, was all about looking at the mouth as this system of, this ecology that wasn't really, it becomes harmful when it's out of balance. But if you make peace with your microbes, you balance your microbiome, everything, it's amazing how quickly the body self-regulates and heals. So from that program in holistic health, I went, into my practice, started doing things a little differently. I started using homeopathic medicines like arnica for after a surgery or something, or hypericum for nerve pain, or aconite if they were nervous. And I started to see that homeopathic medicines, it's really a system of energetic medicine that goes back to the 1800s. I was really fascinated by being able to integrate these different modalities, right? Then Harvard Medical School in 1997, I received a mailing from Harvard Medical School for a program in complementary and alternative medicine. That's what it was called then, CAM. And that was like 1997, 98. And it was a program open to all healthcare providers. So I went up to Boston, to Cambridge Deaconess Hospital, and it was Dr. David Eisenberg, who was one of the early functional medicine, holistic medicine doctors like Andy Weil, the guy with the big white beard. And it was a program, and I'm there day one, and there's a guy sitting next to me, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Bob." And I said, "Hey, Bob, I'm Gerry Curatola." He said, "Hi, Gerry, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a dentist." And he looked at me and said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "Well, Bob, that became the impetus for me to write this book."
Oh.
I was like, "Well, Bob, this like 2x2 cube called the mouth is actually connected to everything over here." And it was really comical, that physicians didn't really even see the connection between the mouth and the body. And yet 90% of toxicity and inflammation in the human body is in your mouth. So from that Harvard program, and by the way, Harvard Medical School ran that program for a couple of years. And I thought it was great because it was kind of bringing everyone, medical doctors, chiropractors, nurses, naturopaths, PAs, everybody, and dentists. I was the only dentist in the program, by the way. But it was bringing everybody together to understand that, medicine and dentistry never should have been split apart. So my biggest campaign as a practitioner, as a teacher, as an inventor, as everything that I've done over these past 4.5 decades has always been about bringing medicine and dentistry back together again. And what's interesting is in Europe, in many places in Europe, like Switzerland and Germany and Italy and the European countries, you want to become a dentist, you go to medical school, and then you subspecialize into dentistry, cardiology, neurology, gastroenterology. Dentistry is a subdivision or a specialty of the entire medical world. Whereas in the United States, 150 years ago, they said, "Oh, you want to study here? You go to dental school. Everywhere else, you go to medical school." And my brother is a physician, many physicians in the family. And I always asked him, like, how many days in medical school did you study the mouth? And my brother was at Yale Medical School and NYU College School of Medicine. And basically, they study the mouth for like 5 days out of 4 years.
Oh, sounds like nutrition.
Right. Nutrition is 1 day, But the funny thing is that it's really, and it's comical, but it's also kind of sad that dentistry and medicine were so split apart, because most dentists really don't understand that the materials they're using, the procedures that they're doing, could have complications with the rest of the body, right? At the same time, there are, about 86% of infectious diseases have manifestations in the mouth. And so there's this bidirectional thing, and that's what my book talks about. My book talks about the fact that toxicity and inflammation, that they have very profound implications and to the rest of the body, right? If you have gum disease, you're at risk of everything from Alzheimer's disease, heart attack, stroke, all the way down to colorectal cancer. The number one bacterium in colorectal tumors is Fusobacterium nucleatum, a commensal, or what we call a community bacteria in the mouth. So the profound connections led me about 10 years ago to write that book, The Mouth-Body Connection. And it also has like these 4 cornerstones of oral health. And I talk about the importance of, like, for example, even not just nutrition, which I have this AAA nutrition in the book, alkalizing, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant rich, all the way from nutrition to exercise. When you exercise, not just good for the body. And it's funny, I had a partner many years ago. We used to observe. He goes, do you ever see how runners have a very low incidence of gum disease? And I was like, well, exercise stimulates the production of short chain fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory. Managing stress is not just about, chilling your head out. Managing stress actually helps align the vagal nerve, and it also helps to increase salivary flow. Because when you're stressed, then you're in sympathetic mode of your autonomic nervous system, which is fight or flight. Saliva dries up, you grind, you clench, you're more prone to gum disease, tooth decay, and all these other things. So managing stress, and I actually have, I think, 6 or 7 anti-inflammatory yoga poses in the book. So there's this whole thing of like kind of really tying the mouth and the body together. And then there's, of course, a meal plan and recipes and everything else. And the guy who wrote my foreword, Nick Perricone, had been talking about inflammation in the skin for years and years. So from the Harvard program, I became friends with a critical care nurse who became a holistic nutritionist. And she cured my daughter, Gia, who was always getting sinus infections. And the pediatrician was like, amoxicillin. And I was like, this is crazy. Like this poor kid, she was, 10 years old, still getting sinus infections and everything else. I sent her to Barbara, the nurse I met. And Barbara, in like 2 sessions, made dietary changes, dairy and gluten and back then. And she never had another sinus infection in her life. So she became my patient. I became her patient. And this was the path that led me, because she came in one day and said, Gerry, there's a change in my medical history. I've been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I said, oh, Barbara, I'm so sorry. Where are you going to get worked up? Are you going to Sloan Kettering? Of course, everybody knows about the famous cancer hospital. And she said, no, that's a meat grinder. I'm not going there. I'm going to the Paracelsus Clinic in Switzerland. And I was like, what? Paracelsus? And she said, yes, Dr. Thomas Rao, he's an MD, and he started this clinic, and he takes a very, he calls it biologic medicine. And I was like, what's biologic medicine? And then she goes, you got to go meet Thomas. You have to go meet Thomas. And it's actually, and then I got his book. He wrote a book on biologic medicine. And I went over there, and he was the first MD that I ever met in my entire life, that if you had anything, you had breast cancer, you had prostate cancer in men, you had any kind of any autoimmune disease, osteoarthritis, and rheumatoid arthritis, chronic Lyme disease, any disease at all, the first thing he would say is, open your mouth. You have any root canals? You have any heavy metals, amalgam fillings, which are 52% mercury? You have any composite plastic fillings, which are loaded with BPA? You have you had your wisdom teeth out? And that's an interesting question, because about 80% of people who have their wisdom teeth out, now we know from these 3D scans that we do, is that people who have their wisdom teeth out often end up with what's known as a residual hole, which got named a cavitational osteonecrosis. And it's not, it forms from where the extraction socket was, and the bone doesn't regenerate. And it almost becomes like a petri dish for pathogens, because it's warm, it's dark, it's moist, and there isn't a good blood supply there. So the first thing he would do would be identify all this, and then he would zero in on everything else. Because what happens is, when you have all these things, all these sources of toxicity and inflammation, it's dysregulating your immune system. if you have gum disease, which is a dysbiosis, an imbalance of the microbial flora of the mouth, basically your immune system becomes dysregulated. And because the oral microbiome compartmentalizes all these different parts of your systemic immune system, not just an immune system in your mouth. And the other part, what's very, very interesting is 90% of the body's ability to make nitric oxide is through the oral microbiome. So the oral microbiome has a vital function, and we've been trying to nuke it for all of that time. So that's been the trajectory. I went from a master's program in holistic health to this Harvard program to all the way to Switzerland and Germany. And then I came back and I was changed.
Wow.
And then I guess because it was so many years, there was once I was speaking at one camp and said, I want you to meet the father of biologic dentistry. And I was like, no. Well, who else is the father? Who's done more? I got a call from a friend. He's like, when did you become the father of bio? And I was like, I don't know. It's been going. They've been coining it. I said, I don't like it. I said, it makes me feel old, and I said, more like I'm kind of like the uncle.
You're the OG, Dr. Gerry.
That was Will Cole. Will Cole said, you're the OG.
Wow, you touched on so many topics. I feel so overwhelmed. I don't know which way to go. I love that you mentioned fluoride. I've never had a dentist talk about energy medicine. I loved Colgate Total. I used that. I saw the ads for it. I feel so bad now. Let's talk about the materials that you use. That was something that you touched on, and off air, we were talking a little bit about kinesiology. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when we talk about biologic materials or biocompatibility is, does your body like it? Is it compatible with the body and your life force, or is it not? So what I learned and what I'm trying to teach, and I'm in the early stages of creating a university institute, hopefully at NYU, although we're exploring where, but we want to teach the principles and protocols of biologic medicine and biologic dentistry. So biologic dentistry is rooted in biologic medicine, and it is founded on this concept that each one of us has a divine life force. And in Ayurveda, they call it prana. In Chinese medicine, they call it chi. In the Western world, it's our spirit, which we used to think it was here, it was there, it was here. And it's actually an electromagnetic field that extends 1.5 feet from your body. And it can even be quantified. But that field, which we call it the biologic field in biologic medicine and biology, we call it the field, it gives us the capacity to self-regulate and heal. So, and we regulate on a number of different dimensions, different planes. First, I always talk about is the microbial flora, the microbial plane, right? The microbiome. You have a gut, you have an oral microbiome, a gut microbiome, a respiratory microbiome, genitourinary microbiome. There's a microbiome on your skin. And these communities can be in balance or out of balance. They dysregulate. And when the microbial flora is dysregulated, we would call that dysbiosis. So that's the microbial level of regulation. Then we have the biochemical regulation. That's all about hormones, right? For example, you got a lot of heavy metals in your teeth. You may be dysregulating your thyroid. So you have biochemical dysregulation from heavy metal toxicity. Or, for example, neurotransmitters for the brain are made in your gut. So if your gut's a mess, you may be depressed. And depression could be the fact that you have serotonin and dopamine that are out of whack and dysregulated. So there's biochemical regulation and dysregulation. The third level is energetic. And that has to do with meridian flow in the body from every tooth to every organ system, from your brainstem through every tooth. I often call the teeth the circuit breakers for the autonomic nervous system.
Oh, I like that.
So your teeth. So if you ever look up the tooth organ relationship chart, you'll see that every tooth is connected to a different organ in the body. And that was Chinese medicine. And recently, dentists are waking up and they're learning to appreciate the fact that, yeah, you got a bunch of root canals on your upper molars. That's on the breast, it's on the thyroid, it's on the stomach, it's on the pancreas on the upper right, and on the upper left, it's on the spleen. And on the bottom molars over here, it's often the first and second molars are the lungs and the colon. And so I once had someone who had a tumor on her lung, and she had an infected root canal. And when that infected root canal, when she was from Houston, Texas, infected root canal was removed, 5 weeks later, the tumor started to shrink to the point where it went to 25% of the size. And they were talking about taking her lung out, which they didn't do. But basically, when they did take out a little piece, because she was in the queue for the surgery, they said, oh, we only have to take a little piece. It was benign. So did the root canal, physically cause the tumor growth and all? Or did the root canal merely flick the breaker off for her autonomic nervous system to be able to regulate? Because we all know we fight cancer every day. When our immune system is working, we're cleaning up these rogue cells and getting rid of them, and then we're making new healthy cells, and we're able to regulate and heal. So the energetic, and this is an area that I became very, very interested in for the past 15, 20 years, this idea that the autonomic nervous system has such a powerful regulatory effect on the whole body. And meridian flow is energy flow from the brainstem right through, and it runs through the fascia of our skin, these meridians, through the fascia of the skin, which is right below the dermis of the skin. And the fascia is this area where there's all this energy flow. If you look, it would light up. If you quantified it, you would light up. But and that's why acupuncture points, as we know, go very, very shallow right into that fascia. So the acupuncture points are in the fascia. The neurovascular bundles for meridians are in the fascia there. Teeth all over. So fourth level of regulation and healing is on the psycho-emotional level. That psycho-emotional level is often misunderstood as well, but there have been books written about it. For example, Bruce Lipton wrote a book, The Biology of Belief.
Yeah, I love that book.
And so what you believe can actually change the way your cells express themselves. The power of intention, the power of the mind. Now, you can manifest things. They talk about the power of the mind and manifesting, and guys like Joe Dispenza talk about it all the time. Like, change that record of negativity into positivity, which you, by the way, exude, Ashley.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. So, psycho-emotional regulation and dysregulation is so powerful in everything, including dentistry, by the way. So if you say, oh, this is killing me, that's the way you say cancel. Because if you think, oh, this is killing me, guess what? It's going to kill you. Because what you set your intent, that's what you manifest. And that's what Bruce Lipton was talking about. But I read a book when I was at the Harvard program. There was a book written by Dr. Bernie Siegel, who was a renowned surgeon. And he would look at patients an oncological surgeon, and he would look at patients who survived and thrived and people who unfortunately didn't make it through their illness. And he called the patients who made it. By the way, the name of his book was Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And he actually had two books, Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And he was talking about the patients who did well. They were exceptional patients who had this positive outlook, this positive attitude. They would have family, friends, and love and support, but they would always have this positive outlook. And he saw that level of regulation, that level of faith, faith is believing in what you can't see, and it's being certain of what you hope for, and that is kind of the prescription for manifestation. Believe, just believe, and And I have some patients who have come to me over the years who've been very sick, at stage 5 cancer and stage 4, and they've really struggled, and they've defied doctors' expectations and have lived for years and years. And that's the power of psycho-emotional regulation. So we regulate on that level. And then the highest level that really affects the entire field is the spiritual connection. And that spiritual connection from here, they say from the crown chakra to source, I call God. And that connection in Hinduism, they call it the Antakarana bridge or the Christ consciousness. And it is, and if you're a Christian, the Bible says, put on the mind of Christ, and that is the connection between God and man. And being connected from there to there, whether you meditate, which I do, whether you, in prayer, meditation, yoga, whatever you need to kind of get out of your head and get to your, higher consciousness. And I often, I share this with people, and I find people are so open to understanding the importance of connecting on a spiritual level now, more than ever before in my entire career. And you'd be like, well, why does a dentist talking about getting connected spiritually? What is that? It has a lot to do with everything. It has to do with your ability to regulate and heal. And so talking about applied kinesiology, we're really dealing with that spiritual life force. We're really dealing with that force. As you know, when you enter the field and you test someone, you can find where the interference is. So, for example, I could give somebody this toothpaste, which is my toothpaste, and you could give this for somebody to hold, and you'll see whether that arm is strong, or if you have a real kind of pesticide, antimicrobial toothpaste, you'll see the arm go down. So the body never lies. And so biocompatibility of materials can vary from patient to patient. Some people have a sensitivity to certain anesthetic and not others. So a lot of times I'll actually have them hold the anesthetic and test which one their body likes the most. So I love applied kinesiology because I see that really where we have this profound honor to really, from one life force to another, to be able to understand what materials agree with that patient's constitution or is not, right? And you look at, if you look at certain materials, they're really, a lot of materials in dentistry are made, and dentists don't even know the toxicity of some of the stuff they work with. Some of the bonding liquids that are really cytotoxic, some of the filling materials that are loaded with BPA, like plastic fillings, composite fillings. And bisphenols are a big problem in dentistry because we've been using them for years. Now we come out with BPA-free composite, and in a recent BPA-free is BPS, and BPS is a worse endocrine disruptor than BPA. So really, the types of materials that are the best are ceramics. So ceramics are, very popular now. We can make ceramic fillings. We even have ceramic implants called zirconia implants. And those are going to be much more acceptable for a lot of different reasons than materials that are kind of conventional, but laden with a lot of different harmful chemicals. You have forever chemicals that are being talked about a lot, but a lot is being talked about with BPA and root canals. And, another really super hot topic. And modern root canal therapy, also known as endodontic therapy, is something that, we were in the mindset of we're saving the tooth, but as a procedure, it really doesn't, the effects of a root canal after a number of years are anything dead in the human body breaks down. So you do a root canal and, it's kind of like doing embalming a dead body. You know, it's like taxidermy on a tooth. You know, we clean it out, clean it out. We keep it in the jaw, and we think like, oh, now the tooth's good, everything is good, everything, whoa, it's great. But the reality is that tooth over time will necrose. Anything dead in the human body will break down and decompose. Teeth and bone slower, but they do break down and decompose. Anything when it's decomposing, you know, there was a study, PubMed study, that 100% of endodontically treated teeth produce endotoxins, which are bacteria and bacterial byproducts. They're not good for you. Root canals block meridian flow. Root canals, and everybody's like, oh, who the heck cares about meridian flow? Well, we know that's the autonomic nervous system and regulation and being able to regenerate and heal. We do need energetic flow proper in the body. That's why, you know, if you have a surgery and you get a scar, that blocks meridians. If it's cut through, you know, say you're cutting into an organ, right? Even women that have cesarean section, they should have those scars treated. There's something called neurotherapy. It's a German practice where you inject under the scar to separate the adhesions and allow energy to flow in the fascia again.
Wow.
Yeah. So I learned so much in Germany and Switzerland. And then when I came back to the States, it was like, we're in the dark ages here. Bioresonance testing I was learning about, and, you know, energetic testing of materials and things. Bioresonance is, you know, the Germans, even the Russians have been using bioresonance for a long time.
I hadn't heard of that. You are mentioning so many things that are new to me. I'm so interested about this Swiss doctor that your nurse saw, and then the biology of belief. I love that you have that spiritual connection when you treat people. And root canals. I read The Hidden Epidemic, who said, I think it was Terry, said every root canal is infected.
Yeah. So what he's talking about there is that when you start to this idea of endotoxin production, so endotoxins are bacteria and bacterial byproducts. As they decompose, they are basically, they become a source. It's almost like a foreign body, and you get an inflammatory reaction that occurs. That, you know, the definition for most dentists of is the root canal good is how does it look on the X-ray, and does it hurt? You know, there's no fever, there's no pain, there's no swelling, so you're groovy. You know, everything's fine. And chronic low-grade inflammation is almost more devastating than high-grade. You know, high grade, you know, get a splinter in your finger, it swells up, but low-grade inflammation is that silent killer. And so anyone who's had a cancer diagnosis or anything like that, who's loaded with root canals, you know, I would advise, you know, really getting a 3D cone beam. That's what we do. And I read them all day long. I could even show you one behind me here, but I could turn the computer around, let you see. But we have lots of issues with modern endodontic therapy. And primarily because the thinking was take the guts out of the tooth, right? The root canal is cleaning out the roots, keeping the tooth and the roots of the teeth, but in the middle of the root is a root canal. That's where the nerves and the blood vessels and lymphatic. So they used to think like, oh, you just take that out and then the tooth is good. Like it's in this inner thing, like a nail in the plywood, you know, it's just there. But a tooth is a living, breathing organ. It has a lymphatic system, a circulatory system, a nervous system, a skeletal system. You know, it's got a lot more going on than just a tooth with a nerve, you know.
I like the way you paint that picture. I didn't know teeth had a lymphatic system, which I also wanted to talk to you about your toothpaste that you had just mentioned, just casual. I know you brought it up. But is it a pre or probiotic toothpaste? It's amazing.
It's prebiotic. So I'll tell you why it's prebiotic. Probiotics don't work in the mouth. So there's lots of, you know, you have antibiotic against bacteria, right? probiotic is the good guys. Let's put the good guys in. And the problem is that I just wrote a really big paper that actually was accepted for publication in a dental journal. And it's all about, thank you. So it's all about the oral microbiome and novel prebiotic, and also this, it's a system, a complex that kind of, we were studying about the oral microbiome. Then we started to see like, wow, the microbiome is this intelligent, semi-permeable, huge community of microbes that do more than just hang out there and bring nutrients. They transport ionic minerals from saliva to remineralize your teeth, for your enamel of your teeth to heal. Transports minerals, ionic phosphorus and calcium, from saliva to the surface of the teeth. It brings molecular oxygen to the surface of the gums. And it takes free radicals and waste product away. So you have this entire metabolism called the Microbial dental complex. Saliva, microbes, and teeth in your mouth are this amazing regulatory system. So we're talking about the body's ability to regulate and heal. Now let's get real detailed and let's look in this 2x2 cube. How do your teeth heal? Well, you have this saliva, microbes, and teeth. And when you have an acidic environment and the pH changes, that complex actually stimulates demineralization. So your teeth demineralize, making you prone to cavities and erosion and other issues. But when it is in balance and the pH is maintained, you have this and the oral microbiome is what we call microbial homeostasis. It helps take minerals from saliva to bring them to the teeth for your teeth to remineralize, keeps your gums healthy. And so in my research, which began in 2002, that, I had all of these ingredients, but it was prebiotic with all these vitamins. We have vitamin C, D, E, K, and coenzyme Q10 and all this. What we found is that Revitin has like 6 different prebiotic nutrients that nourish the indigenous flora of the mouth to keep it healthy. And that's why a healthy oral microbiome is a very low film thickness, a clear, odorless film. And an imbalanced microbiome is a thick, sticky, smelly film that you wake up in the morning and you got plaque on your teeth. Then you use a harsh toothpaste to scrub it away with a heavy mint. So the reason why Revitin has this is new, we've just got a mint flavor.
Yeah.
But the reason it took me a while to develop this mint flavor is because most mints are antimicrobial. Peppermint, wintergreen. I mean, they're very strong mints that are antimicrobial. So, for example, I use peppermint and peppermint and water in a spray to keep the bugs off my tomato plants. It's repellent. So really, we don't want to use bug killers and repellents in the mouth. What we want to do is we want to nourish the indigenous flora called the oral microbiome. What we, in my research, when I started Revitin, I was thinking of, and there was a study from Japan about coenzyme Q10 and vitamin C being the 2 most essential nutrients for gum health. And there was a study from about 1970s in Japan. I happened to see it, and I was like, let me try this. Let me mix a little CoQ10, vitamin C, vitamin E, rub it on the gums, and the gums would stop bleeding in 2 days. So then I did vitamin D3, vitamin K2 for enamel metabolism and bone harmony. And then I had vitamin C, CoQ10. And now we're actually incorporating other prebiotics, because what we found is if probiotics worked in the mouth, you would have lots of other infections in the mouth as well, like E. coli, salmonella. So the mouth makes it very inhospitable for foreign bacteria to set up shop. So you really don't want to, you don't want to use probiotics because there's really no such thing as bacteria are bacteria. When you treat them well, they behave well. When you treat them badly, they become nasty, and we call those pathogens.
Well, thank you for that explanation. I'm really excited. And I didn't know that peppermint or mint was antibacterial. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So is clove oil, so is Tulsi oil, tea tree oil. Tea tree oil is a real bad. They were making a toothpaste with tea tree oil, and I was like, no, that is like throwing a Molotov cocktail on the microbiome. Yeah.
So I'm guessing you're not a fan of using essential oils in the mouth then.
So essential oils in the mouth are fine. I use essential oils in the toothpaste. So I have a lemon and a tangerine oil in here, and I have a number of different. I have sea buckthorn too, which is a really great one, and cranberry seed oil. But essential oils are wonderful, but you got to know what you're using them for, and what you really don't want to be using a powerful antimicrobial essential oil in a toothpaste that you're brushing in your mouth every day.
That's so helpful because I have these gumdrops and, well, they're essential oils, but the name is called gumdrops. And I think it's clove, peppermint, and something else. And you're allowed to put it on your toothpaste, or the founder says slide it on your floss. And that's how I floss sometimes.
Right. Just kill everything.
Oh, man. Okay, so I won't do that anymore.
The scorched earth scorched earth policy in dentistry is so ingrained from the beginning of oral care, in the beginning of toothpaste, was always like Listerine, kill germs on contact. Colgate Total, kill germs 24 hours a day. Chlorhexidine and all these things, kill. And then it was like, oh, we'll be natural, and it's like, all these bug killers. And then xylitol, xylitol is another like pet peeve of mine because.
Tell me about it. I thought it was good. I thought it was supposed to be good in chewing gum after meals.
Yes. Yeah, right. Okay. What is xylitol? Xylitol is a sugar alcohol. And it's also, if you look it up in organic chemistry, they call it a high value chemical. It's made by an industrialized process, of what they call hydrogenation. It even used a heavy metal, rainy nickel, as a catalyst. Now they do a fermenting process and all that. But anyway, to make this white powder, most of it came from originally. A lot of it came from GMO corn cobs. They got the GMO corn, they had the corn cobs. So it was really a subsidiary of DuPont Chemical called Danisca, who did a lot of the development of the mass manufacturing of xylitol. But they did a study in Finland. They did these studies, and they were showing that, xylitol kills strep mutans bacteria. And so that prevents cavities because strep mutans cause cavities. No, strep mutans bacteria live in your mouth. And when your microbiome is in balance, everybody gets along just fine. And these bacteria can not only be benign, but also beneficial. So killing strep mutans, that's a common bacteria, commensal bacteria in the mouth, is not really what you want to do. We've got to get out of the war on microbes. My whole mantra is make peace with your microbes. They keep you alive. Okay, we're made of bacteria. We are literally made of bacteria. As a matter of fact, there's a mitochondrial bacterial theory of creation, that when we were made, and that verse in the Bible where it says God took from the dust of the earth and breathed his spirit, and we were mind, body, spirit. Well, no, the word really translates in the ancient Hebrew and Aramaic to slime, and the earth was covered with microbial slime. So the mitochondria of our cells, it's very interesting. If you look at it and compare it to a bacterium, it's the same shape, it's the same size, they divide the same, and they hold all the genetic information. It's really interesting that maybe we're made of bacteria, not just that we have 10 times the number of bacteria in and on our bodies than our own human cells that do everything from make neurotransmitters for our brain, like I said, to really aiding just about every bodily function. In the mouth, it makes nitric oxide, essential for cardiovascular health, healthier nervous system, healthier immune system. It actually compartmentalizes your immune system and keeps immune system competence. Yep, the bacteria do that. So the bacteria, I used to say in my lectures, bacteria do everything from, the color of your eyes to whether choosing who you're going to marry, and people were like, what? I was like, well, bacteria produce pheromones, which is sexual attraction. So sometimes they make a mistake, but but it can influence who you're attracted to, And so it's very interesting that people's mindset is always like they're invaders, get rid of them. That's why in this paper I wrote, I go through the germ theory, then I go through the probiotic theory. Germ theory was all bacteria are bad, they're invaders, kill them. That goes back to Louis Pasteur, And then the good guy, bad guy thing, the probiotic theory was, and of course the yogurt companies kind of capitalized, oh, you got probiotics, even though most organic yogurt and all that is loaded with like just dead
sugar,
probiotics and sugar. But that was the probiotic theory, and then we got to the Human Microbiome Project. Whoa, that was like as big a scientific breakthrough as when Copernicus said the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. We revolved around this planet called the sun. That's what we've just come through in the last 25 years. We've come through this the human microbiome, understanding of the human microbiome, that these are intelligent organizations and of like in the mouth, beneficial biofilms. We used to call them biofilms. And the term microbiome came around 2002 or 2003. The guy, Josh Lederberg, he was a Nobel laureate and microbiologist who coined the term. It used to be called biofilms, and then it became microbiome. So our microbiome is this amazing, amazing system, in our skin, on our skin, and in our mouth, in our gut, and everywhere else. So it's changed how we need to understand how we need to coexist. This symbiotic relationship between humans and microbes that goes back to the beginning. And that has radically changed the approaches in my biologic dentistry practice. The approaches we take are very different than what we use, because the knee jerk is antibiotic, antimicrobial, kill. And we need to understand, we need to make peace with microbes. So xylitol is very disturbing to the microbiome. So it's disturbing to the oral and the gut microbiome. As a matter of fact, you get really wicked gas and diarrhea when you eat products that have xylitol in them, because it's disturbing to the gut microbiome. And, it's fatal to dogs. Your dog eats a piece of xylitol gum or something, it could be fatal. So xylitol, not good. Antimicrobial essential oils, not good. Hydroxyapetite, another big fad. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I do.
So there was hydroxyapetite, was a synthetic mineral that was created, actually developed. Nanohydroxyapetite was really introduced by NASA in the 1970s. And it was a synthetic mineral that is supposed to help with sensitivity and it can. Hydroxyapetite can reduce sensitivity, but not for long, because it's very susceptible to acid erosion. It just doesn't really work. It's like human hydroxyapetite, synthetic hydroxyapetite. The synthetic hydroxyapetite just doesn't work with the human hydroxyapetite. The best thing is having a balanced oral microbiome where you take ionic minerals from your saliva, and that's remineralizing your teeth. You don't need to put this crap in your toothpaste. But everybody, Boca, this one, that one, hydroxyapatite, because they're like, and they're thinking of it as an alternative to sodium fluoride, which I do have to say, sodium fluoride creates what's called fluorapatite. Hydroxyapatite is what our natural teeth and bones are made of. So it's OH minus AP plus fluorapatite. And when you introduce sodium fluoride, the principal ingredient of rat poison. When he introduced sodium fluoride, that's why toothpaste with sodium fluoride all has a poison warning on the back now. Because there was one company that introduced a toothpaste in the 1980s that was bubblegum flavored, fluorescent blue, and it had sparkles in it. And it was called Crest Sparkle.
I'm pretty sure I used it.
Yep, I did too. It was delicious. Kids were eating it. And there's enough sodium fluoride in a full-size tube of toothpaste, I think, it could be in a regular full-size tube of toothpaste, it's fatal to 2 children under 5. So fluoride fatalities from children eating the toothpaste, fluoride fatalities went up like this. It was like 280%. And so in 1998, took them 10 years, but the FDA mandated a poison warning on any toothpaste with sodium fluoride. And I had parents coming like, why does it say on Crest children's toothpaste that has Disney and Encanto, why does it say on the back, keep out of reach of children? And if more than a pea-sized amount is swallowed, contact poison control right away.
Wow.
And I said, there's a poison warning because guess what? Fluoride is poison. It won't kill you at low doses. It'll just cause all kinds of other problems, but it will kill you at high doses. But here's the sinister thing about fluoride. And it's funny, I had a patient who was a renowned numerologist, and I was talking about fluoride, and he goes, let me do the numerology on fluoride because it comes from fluorine as the element on the periodic table. He did the numerology on fluoride. It comes out to 666.
No. Oh my gosh.
He's like, Gerry, it's a 666. He did when he did all the numbers and he came down to it. And it's like, and then this is deception and this is So fluoride, this giant fluoride thing, like dentists are brainwashed with, and that's a problem, is that dentists and dental hygienists are like, you need fluoride. No, you don't get decay from a lack of fluoride. You get decay from an imbalance in the oral microbiome, what I was just talking about.
Wow.
So
oh my gosh.
Fluoride is the most highly negatively charged, it's interesting, it's negatively charged, the most powerful negatively charged element on the periodic table that's non-radioactive. Anything more negatively charged is radioactive. So the most powerfully charged, that negatively charged element in the periodic table that's not radioactive. So what does that mean? It means that when you introduce it to natural teeth and bones, which is hydroxyapetite, the negatively charged hydroxy, which comes from the water molecule H2O, which, by the way, hydroxyapetite, your teeth have, and your bones have more flexibility. So what it does is it blows out the hydroxy and it puts the F minus, the fluorine, becomes fluorapatite, Fluorapatite, fluorapatite. Fluorapatite is a completely different mineral than hydroxyapatite. It is very, very hard. So that was a big thing. It's like fluoride makes your teeth hard. They said stronger, not stronger. Makes it hard, and actually resistant to acid erosion. So they thought, it's resistant to acid erosion, but brittle, more brittle.
Wow.
Like 1/3 more brittle. So like my mother in the 1980s, when she slipped on the steps of our home and fell on our carpeted steps, they had carpeted steps up to the bedrooms, she didn't get a bruise on her hip. She got a fractured hip because it didn't have that flexibility. And the orthopedist did all these hip fracture rate studies in the 1980s because it was like 25 years of water fluoridation and all this. And they found a high statistical increase in hip fracture rates because the nature of fluorapatite is very different. Now, what happens in the mouth? Well, the enamel is like so hard that even dental x-rays can't see underneath it because it's like this white coating. You get all these microfractures, and you get these microfractures in the teeth. Now you get bacteria there, and then bacteria get underneath there. So now you have a cavity forming in the dentin, which can progress very quickly. Whereas in the enamel, it looks groovy. It looks great.
Oh.
So it's a mess. Fluoride has been a public health disaster, in my opinion. All of the science, and I read a lot of it, You have, 71 studies linking drinking fluoridated water to lower IQ in children. You have you had a study from Harvard School of Public Health with a high statistical correlation found between drinking fluoridated water and osteosarcoma, fatal bone cancer, in male children between the ages of 7 and 11.
I'm learning so much today. I'm going to go throw away my toothpaste after this. And I know we're getting to the pointy end of this conversation. So as we wrap up, I ask all my guests the same closing question, which is, what haven't I asked you that you'd like my listeners to know?
Everyone should know that we are wonderfully made. We are really, the way our bodies function and the way we function as a whole in mind, and we really can't discredit mind, body, spirit is not a cliche. It's a real thing. We have these different dimensions of our existence on this planet. But what everyone should know is that no matter how many problems that you have, no matter how many health challenges you have, no matter how many issues that you're dealing with, that we have this divine capacity to heal, to regulate and heal. So the best two words that I use all the time for people like, wow, I got all these things going on. Well, I'm falling apart. And the two words are, you're fixable. You're fixable. No matter how bad you think your teeth are, no matter how bad you think your mouth is, no matter how bad you think any other part of your body is, you're fixable. And it really starts with baby steps. And that's what I kind of tried to bring across in my book. It's a 21-day program to reverse inflammation and things like that. So I actually had, when I did this, it was a 28-day program for a healthy mouth, and really, because in 21 days, the best way to break a habit is that period of time. That period of time has been shown to be very effective if you really want to break a habit. So I think it's important because people often feel overwhelmed by what's going on in their lives, and we're in a period of time where it just seems like things are crazy around us, and it's important to understand that we are really, above all, we have a divine life force. And I think that's where, we have to show, I always try and bring hope, and I always try and show love and kindness. I said, when the vaccines were going on and there was all this big debate, and the pro-vax and the antibiotic and all that stuff. And I said, the vaccine that everybody needs, it's a vaccine that'll really kind of take away a lot of anxiety. It'll take away a lot of, I said, that vaccine is called love. Love is that vaccine.
Oh.
And I said, and the booster is gratitude.
I love that so much.
Love and gratitude are two of the most powerful vaccines for our spirit and our body and our mind.
I love that so much. I love these parting words. Dr. Gerry, there are so many questions I still have to ask you, so we'll have to have you back on for a round 2. But sure. Please tell my listeners where they can go to find out more about you.
Okay, I'm at 860 Fifth Avenue here in New York, and we have a center in East Hampton, in the heart of East Hampton Village. Or just go to Rejuve Health, REJUV hyphen, the little hyphen, health.com. Rejuve Health, Rejuvenation Health, rejuvehealth.com, with the hyphen in between Rejuve and Health.
Got it. Well, we will put everything in the show notes. Dr. Gerry, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for listening today. I know your time is limited, and I truly value that you spent it with me. If you have the time, a review would genuinely mean the world to me. You could also do a quick shout out on Instagram. I'm at Ashley_Deely, or Welcome to Wellness Podcast. Your voice matters. This podcast is presented for educational and exploratory purposes only. The published content is not intended to be used for diagnosing or treating any illnesses, disease, or disorders. Those responsible for this show disclaim any responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of this information presented by myself or my guests. Please consult with your healthcare provider before using any products or services referenced in this podcast. The content here is for informational purposes only. Episodes on the Welcome to Wellness podcast may at times cover sensitive topics, including, but not limited to, depression, suicide, 5G, nootropics, circumcisions, birth control, the Women's Health Initiative, the use of plant medicine, abortion, geoengineering, terrorism, gender, AI, and sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You are advised to refrain from listening to this podcast if you are likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. However, if these topics interest you just may have found your tribe. The information or opinions expressed on the Welcome to Wellness show are solely the views of the individuals involved and by no means represent absolute facts. Opinions expressed by the host and the guest can change at any time. The views of my guests are solely their views, and the Welcome to Wellness show does not accept responsibility for them. Any action you take based on the information contained within this podcast is strictly at your own risk. The Welcome to Wellness host, ASHLEYDEELEY, will not be liable for any losses or damages in connection with the use of this podcast. You should take all necessary steps to ascertain the information you receive in this podcast is correct and has been verified. None of the guests or contributors on the Welcome to Wellness podcast will be responsible for your use of the information contained therein. Under no circumstances will the Welcome to Wellness show or my affiliates, partners, suppliers, licenses, or guests appearing on the show be liable for any direct or indirect consequences or damages arising from your ability or inability to access this podcast. All intellectual property rights belong to me, ASHLEYDEELEY, and include, but are not limited to, the copyright and any other rights in the design. You are permitted to use the Welcome to Wellness podcast for personal use, but not commercial use without license. You may not make recordings. If you breach these terms, you lose the right to access the Welcome to Wellness podcast, and you must destroy or return any copies of the recordings you've made. Guests on the Welcome to Wellness podcast may at times provide information or read extracts from third-party copyrighted work. The Welcome to Wellness podcast does not provide any medical or professional advice within these episodes. If you take any action or inaction as a result of the content you consume from the Welcome to Wellness podcast, this is based solely on your decision, and ASHLEYDEELEY, the Welcome to Wellness podcast host, and my guests cannot be held responsible or liable for any of the consequences of such action or inaction. Thank you.